Hi everyone, I said I'd give you an Olympic prediction video, so here you are, an Olympic prediction video. Now, I'll be honest, I did think of doing this video a few weeks ago, but then I thought it'd probably be best to just wait for the draws to come out. So I was ready for Friday the 12th of July, ready for some truly gripping TV.
The number 3 and 4 seeds are drawn by lot at the top of Group B and Group C.
But then... yeah, that scuppered my plans a bit. Bit of a shit show, wasn't it? This video though isn't going to be about any of that. It's going to be about the Olympic predictions. However, if you want to lay out your grievances, then feel free to do so in the comments below. The more comments this video gets, the more it'll be pushed by YouTube. So go crazy. But anyway, back to the video at hand. This won't just be a straight up prediction video. No, as I've waited for the draws to be done, I think it'd be rude not to actually talk about them as well. So I'm going to run through the draws a little bit and all that kind of stuff, look at the groups. Then once I've done that, I'll give you my top 3 Olympic predictions, as well as a dark horse just for fun. Sound good? Great! Well then, without further ado, let's get to it. The mixed doubles draw is an interesting one, I must say. For the most part, the groups are pretty evenly spread, and I think we are going to see some big battles for second place. But before diving into that, let's talk Group C, because that one, quite honestly, could see any of those pairs come through. Watanabe and Higashino are the favourites. They are seeded, but with the injury concerns to both players, plus the budget cuts to the NBA due to the whole financial corruption thing, meaning there wasn't the usual national training camp, well, it does lay some doubt at my feet as to the level Watanabe and Higashino can bring. The other 3 pairs in this group are all fantastic. Tangchen Man and Saying Sweat are an experienced pair who have done well at big multi-sport events before. Asian Games 2018 being one where they got silver, and more recently their 4th place finish in Tokyo. Experience at big events, I feel, is a huge factor in events like the Olympics, so it could pay off for them in a pressured environment such as a group like this. The Danes, Matthias Christiansen and Alexandra Boe, can easily spring a surprise. They did so at the last major in Europe, the World Championships, when they defeated China's world number 2s and one of the tournament favourites, Feng Yanze and Wang Dongping, in the round of 16. They'll have European support too, which could help them massively. And Ye Hongwei and Li Xiaoxin from Chinese Taipei are another pair who can't be underestimated. Ye Hongwei has a devastating attack, and this pair have been on the rise as of late, with 2 wins already this year of the current world champions Se Seung-jae and Cha Ye-jung. But lack of Olympic experience might make them come unstuck, especially if they find themselves losing their opening match. Overall, this group does excite me. It excites me the most, and picking who will go through is a tricky one right now. Another group which looks ultra interesting is the top group, Group A. Zheng Siwei and Wang Yaochong, the clear world number 1s, top it, and if anyone says they won't be coming through, that is either brave or stupid or both. But then again, Kim Won-ho and Jung Na-yeon are a pair who have caused them a lot of trouble in past encounters, so if they do that again, then pressure will certainly build. Talking of the Koreans, I really like this pair, especially Kim Won-ho. He has something special about him. Maybe it's the Olympic history steeped within his blood. Okay, that sounded a bit creepy, but what I meant is that his mum, Gil Yong-ah, was a 3-time Olympic medalist. Bronze in 1992 in the mixed, silver in the doubles in 1996, and gold in the mixed in 1996. Maybe Kim Won-ho can follow in her footsteps in the mixed in 2024. The other 2 pairs in the group you certainly can't take lightly. The Indonesians are a pair you can't sleep on, incredibly skillful, but with a lack of firepower, I think they might struggle to break the defence of the Chinese or the Koreans. Tom Jacquel and Delphine Delroux of France don't have that issue, but the issue they have is current form. It hasn't been anywhere near where they'd like it to be. But one thing that should give them confidence that they can find their form at the Olympics is that at the French Open earlier this year, which was played in the same arena as the Olympics will be, they reached the quarterfinals playing some decent badminton. In the other groups, it seems like it's a 3-horse race for the top 2 qualifying spots. The top two from each are the favourites, but in Group B, Robin Tabeling and Selena Peak, and Terry He and Jessica Tan from Group D are capable of causing an upset. All in all, really interesting groups in the mixed doubles. And like I said at the start, unlike the other doubles events which you'll see later, it's an even spread. Now, predictions. I will quickly note that in the doubles events, because the draw for where the runners-up in each group go isn't pre-decided, there is a little guesswork in this. But regardless, here are my top 3 picks. Zheng Siwei and Wang Yachong. They are everyone's favourites, world number ones, and when they do retire, I have no doubt will go down in history as one of the best to ever play. They always make themselves incredibly hard to beat, and I think they'll do that again in Paris. My next pick, Se Seung-jae and Cha Yu-jung. These two are the world champions, one of the few pairs who seem to have a solution against Zheng and Wang, and at the French Open earlier this year they were the runners-up. And my last pick, Yuta Watanabe and Arisa Higashino. I'll admit it, this might be more of a decision of the heart than the mind, but I'm going with it nonetheless. Yes, they have had their injury issues lately, but Watanabe's was showing signs of improvement, and Higashino's was something minor in the practice before the Indonesia Open. So I feel they will be fit for the Olympic Games, and if they are, then with their Olympic experience, coupled with the fact they also seem to bring it when it matters, then I can see them having another deep run in Paris. I also think that if they can come through their group top, then the fact it was 3 tough matches will bode well for them in the knockout stages. And now let's round this out with my dark horse for the mixed doubles, Kim Won-ho and Jung Na-yeon. I've already said how much I like Kim Won-ho as a player, but it isn't just because of his skills, but because he gives me this vibe of someone who will achieve great things. And I think he and Jung have a great chance of doing just that in Paris. Just a feeling I have. How can I sum up the women's doubles draw? Alright, I know, lopsided. It had me pulling this face after it was done.
What?
Usually in the doubles events there is one so-called group of death, and until the men's doubles draw was done, this was that group.
What?
Within it you have Chen Qingchen and Jia Fan, the top seeds, 4-time world champions and Olympic silver medalists, Mayu Matsumoto and Wakana Nagahara, former 2-time world champions, Aprihani Rahayu and Siti Fadia Silva Ramadhanti, the current world silver medalists, and Rahayu is the defending Olympic champion, and Pearly Tan and Tina Muralidharan, the least decorated of the 4 pairs but have still won big tournaments, and they qualify for the Olympics within the top 10. It is an absolutely crazy group, and although I'm fairly certain Chen and Jia will come through it, who will join them is anyone's guess. It's quite ridiculous when you compare Group A to Group B, and I say that with all the respect in the world to those pairs. But these two groups side by side is more different than night and day. In Group C and D, it also looks like the pairs who will qualify are pretty much guaranteed. Although I wouldn't overlook India's Tanisha Cresta and Ashwini Ponnappa, especially when you consider Kim and Kong might come in a little rusty, having not played too much due to an injury to Kim. And in Group D, both European pairs could spring a surprise, especially on the Thai combination of Kittit Tharakul and Prajongjai. And if I had to say which European pair had the best chance, I'd say the French. They are the European champions and will have the home support too. So that's the women's doubles groups out the way. Prediction time. My first pick is Chen Qingchen and Jia Fan. They are in the group of death, but I still see them coming through as top. This pair have won it all, are extremely good at delivering at the biggest events. You only need to know that they've won every world title since Tokyo. Talking of Tokyo, that silver from there was an incredibly bitter one for them, so they will come into Paris even more motivated, which quite honestly is a scary prospect. My next pick is Baekha Na and Lee So-hee, the pair I feel has the best chances of beating Chen and Jia. They are incredibly solid and powerful. They are your quintessential Korean pair, and they are also a good mix of youth and experience. Lee So-hee is the playmaker of the pair and the experienced head, guiding the way in difficult situations. And Baekha Na is the absolute rock of the partnership. When you watch her play, you'd think she is equally as experienced. I know she must be feeling the pressure at times, but she never seems to show it. I did question whether they could do well in the conditions in France, as they played fast earlier in the year, which led them to losing earlier than expected. But then, in the last big tournament before the Olympics, in the windy and difficult conditions of the Astora Sinayan, they dominated, beating Chen and Jia in the final. That cemented their spot in my top contenders list. And finally, Liu Shengshu and Tang Ning. This pair have really risen up the ranks very quickly. I think a number of people felt the second Chinese pair for these Paris Games would be Zhang Shushan and Zheng Yu, but that wasn't to be. And I, for one, wasn't all too surprised. Now, lack of experience might be this pair's undoing, but what made me still pick them is that if there's ever a nation to produce a pair who can do it well on their first try, it's China. I think they can go far, possibly all the way. That's my top 3. What about my dark horse for the women's doubles? Mayu Matsumoto and Wakana Nagahara. A bold pick to select a pair from the group of death, but like my mixed doubles pick, this is purely a gut feeling, although it's coming from a different angle. Matsumoto and Nagahara are a fantastic pair. You don't win back-to-back world titles if you're not. But since their last world win, it hasn't been plain sailing for them, struggling with form massively. That was, however, until this year. I started to see them winning rounds regularly again, and even if they didn't, their performances were becoming more and more consistent. And if they can build on that heading into Paris, then with their highest game being outstanding, then they have a good chance of making the latter stages and contest for a medal of any colour. If you thought Group A in the women's doubles was bad, then Group D in the men's doubles made that look like child's play. Because of the whole situation with the additional French pair, and yes, I reiterate, I am not going into that whole debacle in this video, there was going to be a group of 5. And it just so happens that that group of 5 also became the group of death for men's doubles. The only saving grace is, and no offense to the American pair of Vincent Chu and Joshua Yuan, is that at least the 5th spot wasn't also a top 5 pair. Like I did for Group A in the women's doubles, let's quickly run down the pairs in Group D in the men's doubles. Astrup and Rasmussen. They're the world number 2s, current European champions, European Games champions, and they are the world silver medalists. Takura Hoki and Yugo Kobayashi, former world champions. Liu Chen and Wu Zhuanyi. Liu Chen is a former world champion and is the current Olympic silver medalist. Li Yang and Wang Qilin, they are the current Olympic champions. And then Vincent Chu and Joshua Yan. Like I said, they are the odd ones out of the group. What makes this group so insane isn't just that strength and depth, but the fact all pairs will have to play an extra match. The accumulation of fatigue, both physically and mentally, could play havoc on them in the latter rounds. Who will come out of this group? That's a tricky one. Very tricky. Toss of a coin? But now, if I had to pick, I think it's going to be the Danes in either Li and Wang or Hoki and Kobayashi. Liu Chen's back injury plus Wu Zhuanyi's play under pressure, especially if he has to raise his game to accommodate Liu's injury, just casts too many doubts for me. Now, if Group D is like an open battlefield with mortars going off everywhere, then Group B is like a pleasant afternoon stroll through the park. Again, not taking anything away from the pairs involved, but world champions Se Seung Jae and Kam Min Hyuk must have wondered what they did in a previous life to get a group like that. However, there is a flip side to having an easier group, and that is that if you haven't been tested in the groups, you might not be quite fully ready for the knockout stages. Yes, you are fresher, but sometimes the harder matches prepare you even better. But still, I'm sure any of the pairs in Group D would switch in a heartbeat with anyone from Group B. In the 2 remaining groups, again it seems like the top 2 pairs are pretty secured, but like the women's doubles, there are some European pairs that could on their day cause trouble. Okay, that's a look at the groups done, let's get to the predictions. My first pick is Satwik Sairaj Rankireddy and Chirag Shetty. I have picked these 2 first simply because of just how ridiculous they were at the French Open earlier this year. They were devastating. The conditions were perfect for them, so if the conditions repeat themselves, they will be very difficult to beat. They are also one of only a handful of pairs who have previous Olympic experience, and whilst in Tokyo they didn't get out of their group, they did actually beat the pair that went on to win the whole thing. If Rankireddy and Shetty get into their stride, then they could very well become Olympic champions. Next I pick Kim Astrup and Anna Skarret Rasmussen. Yes, this is a pair in the group of death, but I think a pair who can handle that sort of pressure and come out the other side stronger is Kim and Anna's. They have been really good over the last year and a half to 2 years, rewarded by their world number 2 rank. They will have the European crowd behind them, which I also think will help. They are definitely two players who get a huge boost from lots of support, lest we forget the World Championships last year. They do have a negative head-to-head against all the top pairs in their group, but aside from Hoki and Kobayashi, they have won the majority of their recent encounters, coinciding with their recent rise. If they get an opening round win in the groups, then I think they'll go far. And my last pick is Liang Wei Keng and Wang Chang. They are the top seeds and are a very exciting pair to watch, but whilst they do make my top 3, they aren't my top pick. The only reason for this is Liang Wei Keng is questionable under pressure. So many times I have seen him crack or falter, which has a knock-on effect on Wang Chan. This is also their first Olympics, so the pressure is going to be ridiculously high. This is going to be strange to say, but I have doubts over this pick. But because of their top level quality, and that you could argue this is the same for a lot of the top pairs in men's doubles, I just can't leave them out of my top 3. And finally, my dark horse. As I've already alluded to, the men's doubles event, like you'll see in the men's singles later, is incredibly open. You could make a case for 8 or 9 pairs in the draw. But like with the other dark horses, this is purely a gut feeling pick. Fajar Alfian and Muhammad Rian Ardianto. With Indonesia's rich history in the men's doubles discipline, combined with the fact Alfian and Ardianto are the only representatives in the men's doubles from Indonesia, the pressure will be undoubtedly huge on them. This is also their first Olympic experience. But whilst all of this should go against them, I think they can still deliver the goods in Paris. Don't ask me why I think that, I just do. We are finally on to the singles events, where the draws are slightly different. There are 2 main differences between the doubles and the singles. 1, there are more groups, and 2, only the winner of the group goes through. This also means that looking ahead to the knockout rounds is a little clearer, and therefore easier to potentially predict. Because of the more numerous groups, for the most part the group stages aren't too exciting. It's pretty clear who will come through. There are some exceptions though, with the one that really jumps out being Group E, which has within it the current Olympic silver medalist Tai Ying and former world champion Ratchnuk Intanon. This will certainly be one of the most hotly anticipated matches of the group stages. But scanning across the other groups, there are others that, whilst might not be quite as good in quality, could be more interesting due to their closer nature. Kim Ga-yeon vs Go Jin-wei from Group H intrigues me, as does Zhang Bei-wen and Tu Lin-young in Group K. And even Kirsty Gilmore vs Herbing Zhao in Group N could provide some entertainment. But if I'm honest, it's the potential knockout draw that is where it gets ultra interesting. The top half is clearly the stronger half of the tournament. Within it, there is the world number 1 and favourite Ahn Se-young, former 2-time world champion Akane Yamaguchi, the queen of badminton and current Olympic silver medalist Tai Ying, and a player who none of the top 5 will want to face, Indonesia's Gregoria Mariska Tunjung. The bottom half does have its fair share of world-class players, including more Olympic champions and medalists. It has both Chinese Herbing Zhao and reigning Olympic champion Chen Yufei. It has the 2016 Olympic champion Carolina Marin, and it has the 2-time Olympic medalist and former world champion PV Sindhu. But whilst the bottom half is filled with all these decorated champions, based on current women's singles form, I have to say the top half is tougher. Before I move on to predictions, looking ahead to the knockout stages, there are 2 things of note to me. One is the potential Ahn Se-young vs Akane Yamaguchi quarterfinal. That could be epic, especially when you consider that a little over a year ago these two were regularly meeting in the finals of all big events. The other is how nicely the draw has fallen for Carolina Marin. Her raising her ranking to get inside the top 4 in recent months has paid off big time. Her route to the semis and a shot at the medals is nice. But anyway, with those 2 things aside, let's get on to my predictions. My first pick is Ahn Se-young. If Ahn Se-young wishes to win the Olympics, she will have to do it the hard way, as her draw is a minefield of world-class opponents. But I actually think this is a good thing for her. Ahn Se-young is one of the mentally strongest players in the world, and I get the feeling she will relish the tough route she's been given. There are some doubts over her fitness. Her knee issue that really showed up at last year's Asian Games is clearly not 100%. But in the last tournaments before the Olympics, I felt for the first time since those Asian Games that she was moving somewhat normally. If she is trained appropriately for these games, then she will be very difficult to beat, and the favourite for gold. My next pick is Chen Yufei. Chen is the current Olympic champion, who will be looking to emulate the legendary Zhang Ning and win back-to-back Olympic titles. Ever since her win in Tokyo 3 years ago, she has been steadily performing. It has never quite felt like she was pushing things too hard, almost as if everything was for the sole purpose of these Paris Games. And if I'm right in that thinking, then she could show us all a new level to her game. She showed some signs of it at the Indonesia Super 1000 where she won, but I feel she'll come to Paris in never before seen shape. And my final pick is Carolina Marin. This is a rather begrudging pick, I won't lie. I respect Marin's achievements, but I'm not a fan of hers. But there's no getting around the fact that not only does she have the experience, a 3-time world champion and former Olympic champion, but she also has the recent form, winning this year's All England and a silver at last year's World Championships. With the other two players from the Fabulous Four, Akane Yamaguchi and Tai Ying, having question marks over their fitness, this leaves Carolina Marin as the next logical pick. And lastly, her draw is rather favourable, so by the time she hits the medal rounds, she should still be fresh. And finally, my dark horse, Gregoria Mariska Tunjung. Gregoria is a true talent in the badminton world. Her skills and technique are on par with anyone who's played before. But when I used to watch her before, I used to feel she was too slow and cumbersome to compete consistently against the top players. This, however, has changed recently. Like I said, her skills and shot making were never in doubt, but now with this newfound physical side to her, she can play those shots under more pressure and for longer. I have also picked her because while she may have to face Tai Ying in the quarters, whom she has a 9-0 head-to-head against, they haven't faced so far this year. And it's this year where not only has Tunjung progressed the most, but Tai Ying's injuries arose. And finally, I've left the best till last. Well, my favourite at least, the men's singles. And whilst it is my favourite, it is also the prediction I've had the hardest time with because it is probably the deepest discipline. If the men's doubles had 9 pairs who could all potentially win or get far, then the men's singles might come close to doubling that. But hey, let's give this a go. Like the women's singles, for the most part the men's singles groups seem rather straightforward. There are some potentially interesting group clashes however. Kenta Nishimoto versus Brian Yang in Group D, Cho Chin Chen and Lee Chuk Yu could be a real humdinger in Group I, Kodai Naraoka and Jung Yok Jin in Group J definitely jumps out at me. Actually, Igor Coelho is also in that group. That's a tough group. But having said that, there is one group that stands out clearer than the rest. Group L. Not only is this group one of only 2 with 4 players in it, but there's also 2 very big names in it too, Jonathan Christie and Lakshya Sen. Lakshya Sen was the one unseeded player who none of the seeds would have wanted, so Christie must have felt the badminton gods were against him. Lakshya has won world medals before, been in the final of the All England, and led India to Thomas Cup glory. But his form in the Olympic qualification period wasn't the best. That was, however, until this year. Steadily refining his old game, Lakshya is getting close to his absolute best, a formidable opponent. For Christie, he's had a very good 2024, although it has come in patches. He won the All England, the Asia Championships, then went undefeated at Thomas Cup, putting him in the driving seat as one of the top contenders in Paris. But then he failed to win a round in the last 2 big events before the Games, which questioned all that previous hype. Because of this, I think everyone is intrigued to see how this group match goes. However, that group L, doesn't end there. The other 2 players within it also can't be overlooked. Julian Karagi is a very dangerous player, having taken Lakshya Sen to 3 in their 2 previous encounters. And no one can forget Kevin Corden, the player who had the miracle run in Tokyo. And even though he is likely too old to really compete and replicate what he did in Tokyo, just the fact he did what he did in Tokyo might make the others a tad nervous. Group L is definitely the one to watch. Looking beyond the group stages and into the knockout rounds, there are some very interesting potential matches. Some interesting matches that might worry some Chinese fans. China have Xu Qi and Li Shifeng going, two potential gold medalists, especially Xu Qi. But if the draw follows, then in the quarters both could face the current Olympic champion and current world champion. Xu Qi could face Kunle Vititzan, the world champion, in the quarters in a repeat of the French Open final. I really rate Kunle and feel he is building towards something big, and he is more than capable of upsetting the world number one. And Li Shifeng is drawn to face Victor Axelsen, the current Olympic champion. These two have never met before, although many have always wanted to see the showdown, so it'd be great for neutral fans. I'd love to see it happen. But then again, I am sure former world champion Lo Qianyu will have something to say about that. But what this all means is that potentially China could lose both its players before the medal rounds, something that hasn't happened since 2004. In the other two quarters of the draw, the one that excites me the most is the section with Anders Antonsen, Li Zijia and Anthony Ginting. Three contrasting styles, three players who have all beaten each other, and three players who can deliver fantastic matches. Anders will have the slight advantage of the bye before the quarters, but still, what a section of the draw. And I might as well talk about the final quarter, as whoever comes through the singles group of death won't have it easy. But in comparison to the rest of the draw, it is the most favourable. Crazy to say that with the players in it, but that's men's singles these days. And with that, let's try these predictions. This should be interesting. Okay, first pick, Xu Qi. I know I put in some doubts, namely that Kunle Vititzan could spoil the party, but other than that, Xu Qi is the man of the moment in men's singles. He is the clear world number one and has been incredibly consistent over the last 9 months or so. What really stands out to me is that he hasn't just won by destroying everyone like Victor did in 2022, but he's had to dig deep, really deep, and pull himself out of many difficult situations. And the fact that he has done that shows to me that he has what it takes to become an Olympic champion. The pressure is there will be tough moments, but Xu Qi will know he can find a way to get through them. That, and he just has an insanely good game, capable of also destroying all in sight. Second pick, Victor Axelsen. Experience goes a long way in the Olympics, I think, and no one in the draw for the men's singles is as experienced as Victor. Bronze in Rio, gold in Tokyo, he knows how to deliver on the biggest stage, and I think we'll see him do it again in Paris. There have been injury issues, and I'd say some psychological ones too. He's been losing his shit a bit too often for my liking. But when push comes to shove, I have to back Victor. I think he'll deliver again. And my last pick, Kunle Vititzan. Yes, I know that's two picks of mine who both can't medal as they will face in the quarters. I am hedging my bets a bit here, but I picked Kunle here because I feel if he does beat Xi in the quarters, then he could go all the way. Kunle is what I call a big time player. He is able to play his best at the biggest events. It's why he has reached the final of the last two World Championships. Since winning the Worlds last year, he has struggled, but this was down to, in his own words, media commitments, injuries, and the fact it takes him a while to rebuild his game. But having watched him closely throughout 2024, I have noticed his game is going in one direction, up. So I think with that in mind, coupled with his big time player status, he could very well go all the way. And finally, my dark horse pick for the men's singles, the hardest pick of the video, Lakshya Sen. This will not go down well with the Indonesian fans, I know, but just like with Kunle steadily improving this year, so too has Lakshya. He does have it tough in the group stages with Jonathan Christie in his group, but I wouldn't be surprised if he comes through and then his draw does open up. Chances present themselves. Lakshya is a very difficult opponent to beat, and like with my other dark horses, my gut feeling is telling me he could make a good run in Paris. So everyone, there you have it. A little look at the draws, my top 3 predictions, and even my dark horse thrown in for good measure. I'll be honest, it wasn't easy to pick, especially in the men's events. And usually when I like to do any of these kind of prediction things, I like to at least watch one match first. But I really wanted to get this video out to you as soon as possible. Feel free to get in the comments and let me know your own thoughts on the Olympics and who you think will do well or who you think will win. I know there has been a fair amount of controversy surrounding these Olympics already, but I sincerely hope that that doesn't get in the way of what is our sport's biggest event. I can't wait to watch all the action unfold. Talking of which, I will be making daily content on the Olympic Games for the BWF across all their social media platforms. I will also be posting it to my Instagram, and I'll likely chunk them up on YouTube Shorts as well, so you don't miss out. Thanks for watching everyone, until next time.